Thank you,
Thank you,
Piers.
everyone.
Thank you, Victoria. If you have no time to write to us now in the chat, but because you want to follow what will happen now, please write to us to our emails. Piers will have the email, and you will be in contact with us very soon. So thank you very much, and good luck, everybody.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Stefan. Thank you, Vittoria. So, Vittoria, just to be clear, they will all the candidates in the exam will receive an email on Monday, well, next week, at some
Yeah.
point next week, which will explain the time that they're sitting the exam. It'll explain the links to test we, etc. And then it's up to them to make sure they take the exam at that correct time.
Correct. Yep. It will have it, the rules and everything. So
Super.
Now,
Victoria,
also,
Stefan, sorry, Steph.
also was to mention that we didn't say that with Victoria, we will be available before the exam, an hour before, and also after. So if you face any problem, any issues, please, you will have our details in the email you received. Contact us, so we try to solve it immediately.
and I'm gonna put the WA referee's email right now in the chat. That way you guys have it.
Super. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steph. We'll
Thank
move
you.
on because I realize people's time is precious and I know there's chats going on. So first of all, thank you to the guys for explaining about the exam. Now we get into the nitty gritty, and I'm going to be quite quick. And myself and both Luis is welcome to comment at any point. We are going to go through the basics of what is a goal level judge. We are not going to explain the rules or explain what you need to do because you've already been an experienced international judge. I'm going to give some skeleton background and discuss some of the events this year. And then what I want to do really quickly is hand it over to Jeff Savage to talk about the science of the judging, the techniques, the loss of contact, how to understand it. And the most important part for all of you then will be the video training. And what we hope is that you've watched the video training on the YouTube, you've done a little bit of preparation yourself, and then we're going to get in and use polls and test yourselves. And it's going to be completely anonymous. And then Jeff will explain in terms of science, not in terms of opinions, who is off the ground and who isn't off the ground. So first of all, what is your job as a goal level race walking judge? Well, first of all, from our side, it's to act in a professional manner and enforce the definition of race walking by showing yellow paddles and issuing red cards to athletes not complying with the definition of race walking. I think you all know the definition and the two rules. I don't need to read it out. Also, as a goal judge, you should be the lead contact for race walking judges in your home country. You should be the senior person or the chief judge at a national championship. You should make yourself available to judge the World Race Walking Tour events, and you should speak to the coaches in your country and provide advice where technique problems exist among the athletes. That's really important because you have to understand the ladder approach of the athletes. The athletes will compete at national championships, international level, and then they'll compete hopefully at Olympic Games and World Championships and Continental Championships. So you do have a job as a judge, first of all, to enforce the rules at your national events. But secondly, if a coach is saying, well, why is my athlete getting disqualified away and he's not going to be disqualified at home or vice versa, it's up to you to give the feedback to the coaches and where possible, the athletes. Our other job and our key job is to be accurate and consistent when showing yellow paddles and issuing red cards. This has been a challenge as old as the event itself. I do believe it's getting better. I think technology, and one of the things we can be grateful for with COVID is that we're all reasonably comfortable having a training session on Zoom from our homes or from our offices tonight or this morning, as the case may be. So we're trying to improve accuracy and consistency. And I believe when Jeff gives you his review of the statistics, you will see how at the top level, which is where you're trying to be, that the consistency did improve a little bit this year. I've mentioned accuracy and consistency. This means we all should have the same definition of what is a bent knee, walking, and loss of contact are. That's the key point, and that's what this training will do. You will do an exam in 10 days' time. We will do ongoing training, and as a goal level judge, you will be subject, because we're monitoring very, very closely. Luis is monitoring, I'm monitoring, Jeff is monitoring all the summary sheets. We're seeing who are the judges who are actually taking the correct action, because we follow the sport so closely, and we also see the judges then who aren't as active as possible, and we want to see judges enforcing the rules, and clearly we want to see the walking being better as well. So clearly show yellow paddles early and issue red cards when technique does not improve. That is the basic function of a race walking judge. We would say at international level, focus your actions on the lead pack, not just the people in the rear, particularly at, shall we say, the race walking team championships, where not all walkers are elite level. It's easy to pick off ones at the back. We want you to focus on the top of the race. That's the most important part, the podium. Of course, it is not easy as human beings to focus on a pack of 10 or 15 walkers. That's clear. But what we're going to say is to focus on the worst offenders. You will regularly hear judges, or maybe hear yourself saying, well, that athlete in red or that athlete in green or in blue attracted my attention. And I could see that athlete, was bouncing or was too high off the ground compared to the walkers. And they're the walkers that you should be taking action on first of all. And we've said it often to these webinars, the first red card issued should be to the worst walker in the race, the second red card to the next worst walker, etc. That is a gold level judge doing his or her job properly. So let me just make sure I didn't skip any hits. I want to focus now on one of the events this year, which was the World Under-20 Championships in Lima. And the reason I want to focus on this is because it's probably the event I think we received the most feedback from the race walking community, who is other judges, other coaches, and other, shall we say, fans or supporters of race walking, because of some of the decisions that were made or that were not made, in fact, by the judges this year. I think in reality, Paris was actually judged quite well. I think Antalya was judged reasonably well. I think Lima was the outstanding event this year, which we need to be really honest with ourselves as a squad, as a team of gold level race walking judges. So clearly we have cut out the body. You don't need to identify the athlete, but looking at the loss of contact in this athlete, we are looking at 38, 55 over here, and then go down the bottom, 72 meters per second and 75 millimeters per second. That is undeniable loss of contact. And every judge, I can say nearly everybody watching it on the live stream was able to see that athlete received only one red card and won a medal at the World Under-20 Championship. So from my point of view and from World Athletics point of view, it's a shame that the judges were not taking action at that event. It's something we all need to look at. I think it's not something that's debatable. Clearly, if you see an athlete that high off the ground, he is crying out for red cards to be written. He should have received all his red cards on one lap, no matter how close it was to the finish. In the end, he received one red card, and the judges afterwards felt they did a good job. And I know the chief judge is on the call this evening. Clearly, he wasn't judging. And I was watching the event, and I was saying, how is he still in the race? When is he going to be disqualified? Nothing was coming in from the judges. And then, of course, my phone started to light up from everybody texting me from various places around the world saying, how on earth is that athlete still in the race? We had 5 judges flown to the event in South America, and only 1 judge took an action on that walker. That's the area as a group that we need to improve on. We can go through, where the judge is correct. Well, clearly the majority view of the race walking community was that they weren't. They could have said it's the last 100 meters. They could have said that, that athlete was only not failing to walk within the definition for a brief period. If they received a red card, if they swing their knee, foot low, etc., masking the loss of contact. We can go through each one of these at one at a time. The walker was not in the last 100 meters. Clearly, he was not hiding in the pack. It was very obvious to everybody watching. One second, I'm going back here. And you can see here, did the athlete receive a judge? Here's one of our international judges, not even looking at the athlete racing. And again, that is where we really let ourselves down as a group of race walking judges, where the judges are completely missing what's clearly not race walking technique. And again, you can see, we often talk about it as race walking judges as seeing daylight underneath the walkers. Clearly, that is not a marginal call. That is a very clear call. And clearly, as a group of race walking judges, we need to do much better than that. So the conclusion is the judges were not active enough in that competition and definitely not accurate. And we'll mention a lot on consistency and accuracy. I think, as I say, this year, the judging is a lot better. Jeff will give you the data behind it. But clearly, the World Under-20s in Lima this year was not a good reflection of our top level judges, and it's something that we need to address going forward. And very simply, we will now, after the new gold level candidates do their exam, we will have a far bigger panel. We will only select the judges who are actually consistent and active in competitions to be judges at Olympics and World Championships going forward. We will no longer have a small little group where we have to appoint everybody. The new philosophy will be the best judges only judging at World Championships. So I hope that motivates everybody. Luis, if you've anything to say, feel free. If not, I'm happy to hand the floor to Jeff to do a review of the year and then to discuss the videos. I know I was quite quick, but I think the messages I had were simple messages to give to you all, and happy to hand the floor to Jeff, or else if Luis wants to say anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Piers. Good night to everyone, or good morning, depending on how will be your time zone. This is important that you mentioned, Piers, because in the past, maybe all the judges that they are in the former level 3, but currently they will be the gold panel, knows that they will be appointed at least one time during the 4 years period all the time. No, now with the new philosophy, we need to act. This means we are not a people like a post that they are in the middle of the track or the middle of the road. When we observe, when we see something, we need to act, and we need to be active, not just to be passive. As you mentioned before, some of the times, maybe the athletes that they are obviously breaking the rules in the first part of the race, we are waiting a lot for to make a decision. Now it's time to take the correct decision, because we never know what will be happening with this athlete in the last part of the race. Thank you.
Luis, thank you. And just maybe to say to everybody is familiar with Luis. Luis will be the chief judge in Tokyo. So again, he is starting his job today. As you know, as we spoke earlier about, because the course in Tokyo is a little bit complicated, we will select the judges in cooperation with Luis, because we want the best judges for all of our World Athletics Series competitions. And maybe to share one more point, I was in the Los Angeles actually last week, but I was watching the live stream from Zittau, from the World Race Walking Tour, and I was watching the live stream from Tokyo, actually, or from Japan, where the world record was set. But even watching Zittau, and we had a good panel. I think the judging panel was good in Zittau. I saw one athlete came up straight away, and I said, how is he still in the race? And I've asked 3 times now for the summary sheets, because I want to see the summary sheets from Zittau to know what judges are actually acting and what judges are not acting. And that's the philosophy that we will be doing going forward. So please be aware, if you are professional in your attitude and you're preparing for the competitions in a professional way, and you're picking out the correct walkers who shouldn't be getting red cards, you will get the appointments. And that's the way it's going to be going forward. So thanks, Luis, and hand the floor now to Jeff.
Thanks, Piers. All right, we're kind of jumping into the middle with this one slide, but I wanted to start with looking at a race that I analyzed in great detail. So when I was at Antalya, I filmed all the races as if I were a judge, with very high-speed cameras, very high-resolution cameras. And myself and a couple other people sat and analyzed every single stride of every single walker across all the races. So when you said, did it take hours, days, weeks, months to go through all this? If you look at it superficially and say, who are the absolute people who were the most off the ground in the race? And I'm just arbitrarily picking 60. That doesn't mean that 55 shouldn't get a red card as well, or 50 shouldn't get a red card. But if we follow Pierce's advice of the first red card should be for the person who looks the worst in the race, the second red card should be the person who looks the next worst, clearly the people who are 60 and more over should be the first ones getting cards. So I tabulated that through the entire marathon relay, which in Antalya was more of the elite walkers, because it was an automatic berth. And I had 8 that were over 60 milliseconds, I believe, for at least 2 laps. So we skipped the idea that it just happened for an instance. And the judges had 8. So initially looking at this, we're like, this is excellent. This is great. Next slide, Pierce.
Jeff, just to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about here. So 40, 50, 60, there might be crazy numbers. So Brian Hanley has done a lot of studies of the judges, and to say what we're seeing is loss of contact. So in his view, somewhere in the middle of 40 milliseconds off the ground is what the reaction of the gold level judges has in the past been. So the view has been the human eye can observe loss of contact in and around 40 milliseconds per stride, or whatever it is. So we have studied, and Jeff will explain the 50 and the 60. We're more or less saying, okay, it's easy to do with a camera, and technology will be coming in soon, but at the moment we're on the human eye. So we're saying, okay, anybody in the 40s is not really visible by the human eye. Anybody in the 50s and above is visible by the human eye, and therefore we expect that those athletes at the very least would receive a yellow paddle to say, hey, I can see daylight, I'm not happy with your technique. And then ideally, if they don't improve their technique, that they would receive a red card. So that's just to explain the 40, the 50, and the 60. And to be clear, to bring that back to what we showed you before, Jeff, if you don't mind, I want to just go back. This was, if I just show people the measurements, why is it? Yeah, here we go. just to show people the measurements, this was 66 milliseconds off the ground. You can see clear daylight with this athlete. And in the previous stride, you can see, which is the worst of all, and this is where we're probably so harsh on Lima, 75 milliseconds off the ground. So you can see clearly there, when an athlete is like that, that should be a red card. That's the whole point of what we're trying to say. You will see in the videos athletes between 47 and 48, and most of the time your attitude will be, yeah, he or she looks okay. And that's the view of it. So that's what Jeff is explaining here. He's gone through some of the statistics from Antalya, and he's got Paris as well. And then we'll go through the videos.
All right. When we looked at it in detail, though, what I had on the right was the video observation. I anonymized all the walkers and all the judges and all that. So the worst offenders that I found on the video were north of 60. And if you go to the next, click the next, right, you'll see that only one of the athletes that the judges gave the red card, the significant red cards to for loss of contact, were on my list. So that doesn't mean that these athletes weren't deserving of a red card, but they didn't pick the worst athletes first. And as a group, that's what we really have to hone in on, is making sure that when we start writing the first red cards, that we're actually giving it to the people who are the most visible, having the most loss of contact. Continue.
Yes, and I should just add in here, Jeff, because I'm quite harsh on judges. Antalya, the World Race Walking Team Challenges is an extremely difficult event to judge. It's 5 races. It starts at 7 o'clock in the morning. If my memory is right, the relay was finished at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was 30 degrees. That's the reality of the job you'll be doing. They are hard days on your feet, looking at literally thousands of different walkers' legs, doing lap after lap. The marathon relay, the 2 junior 10Ks, the 2 senior 20Ks. It is difficult, but we still are striving to be better judges and be more consistent. So don't think we're not naming and shaming any athletes. We're not naming and shaming any of the judges. What we're trying to do is to educate you all to understand the bigger picture of race walking.
And Pierce, I'll add to that. When I started judging, someone said race walk judging is easy. And I'm like, oh, it is not easy. And if you've never gone to a World Team Championships, that is the hardest event to judge. And there was one walker who looked awful. And when you see him on video, you're like, how is he in the race? But if you go back through the previous videos, he was hiding behind athletes. And judges can only look at so many people simultaneously. I'm not saying I'm doing any better if I were live than any of the judges. Obviously, the camera, I have the luxury of determining what was actually going on and then going back. And when I judge, typically I put a camera somewhere on the course, usually by me, let it run, and then I evaluate myself and see if I made the right calls. And that's a way to tune all of us. Getting into a little more detail, right? If we look at the trends, one typical trend, something that we've echoed over and over again, is that there should be more calls for loss of contact than bent knee. And in the marathon relay in Paris, that was the one event I had the best video on. That trend, so that's where I focused my analysis. That trend held true. This is for elite competitions. If we get to an old masters competition that's a local event, the numbers flip and you get a lot of bent knee and not loss of contact. But at elite, predominantly, we're going to see loss of contact, not bent knee. Continue. And so I say that, and I'll quote Winston Churchill, the generals are always preparing to fight the last war. So after Budapest, we said there were virtually no bent knee walkers, but yet there were many bent knee calls, and there weren't enough loss of contact calls. So we kind of yelled and said, hey, don't be giving bent knee calls when they're not valid. However, past trends don't always reflect at the next event. So if we go to the next slide. So when I did the totals from Budapest, 6% of the men and 3% of the women, in my opinion, from the video should have been given bent knee calls. When we got to the World Championships in Antalya, the numbers actually went up. And I have a couple of theories for that if you go to the next slide. Okay, so one, we gave a coaching debrief and we said, we're going to be stricter in the enforcement of loss of contact. We're not going to tolerate the loss of contact that we saw in Budapest. Well, that sent a very clear message to everybody to focus on loss of contact, perhaps at the cost of focusing on bent knee. But the other issue, the one that I think is actually more relevant, is when you get to a World Team Championships instead of the Olympics or the World Championships, you have less elite walkers and you have lots of junior walkers and other walkers. And those less elite walkers will be more prone to bent knee. So the lesson to say is, okay, we understand the trends. We see the videos. Even if I show you video from the same race, you might see one walker being totally legal in one video and totally illegal in another video. You have to trust yourself and say, I know the predominance of red cards will be for loss of contact, but I need to evaluate each walker, see what I see. And if the trend changes for that day, have the courage of your conviction. One red card is not going to issue a DQ if you are way off from everybody else. But if you're seeing something different than the normal, you need to take action.
Jeff, if I can just jump in there about trends in legality. I know very well two coaches who coached athletes to the podium in Paris. Both of them received the message loud and clear from the webinars we had last year, and a lot of you were on those webinars, that we were going to judge harsher, that the judging had to be more active. Both of those coaches worked on the technique of their athletes, because I'd spoken to them afterwards and I'd seen videos. I said, guys, that's still not race walking as far as I'm concerned. Both of them went away and coached technique. That's a success. If the coaches are more stringent in coaching technique, then we get presented with less problems as judges. That's why it's important. I know very well the coaches who just don't coach technique at all, and you can see their athletes. And I know the coaches who do all the drills and who slow the athletes down and are using videos to improve their technique. So for all of you, and you, many of you will be on the gold panel going forward, that is the message that has to go out. Jeff presented, I remember, a police car checking speeding of cars. If you've got a police car with a laser gun checking the speed of the cars will naturally slow down. That is the job of the judges, to ensure the best athletes with the best technique are the ones that end up on the podium. Thanks, Jeff.
And Pierce, it's not just your opinion that they look better. When we looked at the numbers from race to race to race, you could see the athletes improving. The very same athletes had less loss of contact as we progressed through the season, and that's fantastic.
And Jeff, one more point, exactly, my opinion's irrelevant. Other athletes who we know are good walkers have actually said, well, that guy has improved since last year, and this girl has improved since last year. So that's the respect among the peer group as well. And that's what we're all looking for. The athletes with the best technique are the ones that get on the podium. Thanks, Jeff.
Continue. All right, so this is just very quickly the summary from Brian Hanley, who said go level athletes, 45 is the number that I think he published, but it was between 40 and 45 in a lab. And I can tell you that a lab is very different than a pack of 20 walkers, shadows, clouds, harsh lighting, which is why we talk about 50 as being the threshold. I started studying this in 2009 when the camera equipment wasn't good enough to get the data that we have. In 2019, I earnestly started videoing from a judging perspective. And at that point, before Pierce and I and Luis and I were all talking about this, I had said at 50, you start issuing a yellow, and at 55, it should be a red card. And then the 60 number only came out because of the anomaly of Budapest, right? So we got to get back down to 50, and that gives us the wiggle room of what we're doing. And obviously, an athlete that can keep their foot really low to the ground might get away with a couple of more milliseconds than somebody else, but the trend needs to get lower. And we think that when we gave the seminar and throughout to coaches that we're not going to tolerate this, that was the start of the change. Continue.
Yeah, we got to get below 50, Jeff, just to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to give you all the reality of the life. I don't know if any of you know what the qualifying time is for the World Championships in Tokyo next year. For 20K, it's 1 hour, 19 minutes and 20 seconds. There are so few athletes in the world who can walk with correct technique 1 hour 19. The reason that's the qualifying time is because that's what finished in Budapest. The amount of athletes who set new national records in Budapest when the judges were not active enough and they actually thought, okay, we have a license to roam here. That's the damage non-judge races do. They allow athletes to get a faster time than they're capable of doing. Then when we try and slow them all down and get the right technique, none of them are going to achieve the qualifying standards for Tokyo next year for the World Championships. It is really a difficult situation. That's why we have the regulations about the World Race Walking Tour and the international judging panels that need to be present. Clearly, that's expensive for organizers. It's expensive for athletes who maybe don't have the international judges in their country. And that's why we're doing the bronze exams and the training next week and at the end of November to educate and equip more federations to have international judges that can judge their races, who can give the correct message to their athletes about what is correct race walking technique and what isn't.
All right. So this is the summary of a year's worth of work in one chart. And I'm proud of everybody because it's the coaches, the judges, the athletes. Basically, we went from Budapest. This is the 20 worst offenders according to the video in loss of contact. They averaged 66 milliseconds loss of contact. In Antalya, we were down to 61.75. And in Paris, we were down to 57. And by looking at only the 20 worst, not the average across the entire field, it kind of normalizes everything because the 20 best in Paris should be the same level as the 20 best in Budapest. And yet we saw a continued improvement. This is a start. This is not an end. We need to continue to push to get the loss of contact lower.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I would love if we were sitting here next year again, and we were all here last year looking at Budapest, pulling our hair out. If we're sitting here and we have Tokyo next year and we have less than 50, and then we know we're in a good place as an event. And that's the message that goes to coaches, that goes to the judges, and ultimately that goes to the athletes themselves.
Continue. Okay. So this is another interesting thing. And, I'm a computer scientist by trade. Race walking is my passion. I spend more time on race walking than my day job. Don't tell my boss. And I always assumed if you gave lots of yellow paddles, the athletes would respond. And we do want to do that. We want to give them the warning. But if you look at the statistics, Budapest had no issue with giving yellow paddles. They were the race of the three where more yellow paddles were issued than any of the others. Why did the athletes not respond? Because they were the lowest race when it came to red cards. Now, this is a very small sample, so it's not fair to draw broad conclusions. But having talked to athletes that I know typically try to stay 40 and under, they said in Paris they saw, not everybody was getting a red card, and they started to do the opposite and come up. Now, Paris was well judged, so it wasn't a big problem, but the athletes will respond to the number of red cards that they see going up on the display.
Jeff, would you just explain, even for me, the percentage red cards at the end? So you got 50% Budapest, 95% Antalya, 78 Paris. What does that mean, the percentage of yellows that were converted into red cards?
I wrote this so long ago now I'd have to look up what my statistic was. I think Come back to it. Well, just when 95% red cards obviously stands out, that's what I was wondering. What does that mean? 95% of what is red? But we come back to it. Don't worry. Yeah. I'll have to get back to you and send that out. I apologize. I wrote this a while ago. I have to look at the query. So what are the harsh realities of all this, right? We certainly should be able to observe loss of contact over 60. We should be able to observe loss of contact over 50. Right, somewhere on the border of 50 is where it might get inconsistent. But we should, as a panel, be consistent when it's 55 or above. And in the low 50s, we should be consistent, at least giving everybody a yellow paddle. And that means that probably at elite competitions, the number of red cards are going to go up temporarily. Athletes will get the message and they'll alter their technique and have less loss of contact moving forward.
Yeah, athletes will absolutely get the message. So let me tell you one more thing. You hear Jeff talking 50, 55, 60 milliseconds, okay? The coaches all know this. When we told this to the coaches, they said, I know, I video the athlete, I see the athlete every day. I know their loss of contact. The judges haven't been judging. This is where this conversation started, a year and a half ago. You can see the statistics are better. They've got to continue to get better. So just bear in mind, I don't want anybody sitting here tonight thinking, I'm completely lost. I don't know what 50 is or 55 or 60. What we're going to do at the end of this webinar is show you the videos. You're going to say, he looks bad, she looks off the ground, he looks good. And we're going to explain exactly what that is. And we will share the loss of contact per athlete. Now, bear in mind that this is not targeting athletes. These are faces blocked off. It's a yellow vest, a green vest, a red vest, whatever the color is, it's irrelevant. Like all of you, we look at feet. That's the one thing as judges we constantly look at is feet. So just bear that in mind as we get on. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, and like I said, there are instances on the video where maybe they were only illegal for that one moment in time, but it was a good test question, a good practice question. It doesn't even mean they deserve to be disqualified in the race, right? If somebody had a bad turn, picked up a yellow, and then they corrected themselves, right? We may be showing it as a bent knee, but they didn't deserve to be disqualified. And this is a painful slide. So so I wrote a query. It doesn't really matter what that score is other than it shows the relationship between the judges. But we took all of the possible correct or incorrect actions a judge could do. So did you correctly call a red card for loss of contact? Did you correctly call a red card for bent knee? Did you miss a red card? Did you not make a call when you should not have made a call? And then maybe you made a red card call, but you called it for bent knee when it was loss of contact. If you take all that in and use some magic formula, which I'm happy to share with people if they want it, it's very complicated, but you get a judging score. And you can see that Judge G, using the 60 millisecond standard, was far better than all the other judges comparing to the video. And that judge was not necessarily the judge that was standing next to me. Then there were a bunch of people all around the same range, and then a few outliers not doing as well. And Pierce and I have had these debates. Well, what if you said 55 milliseconds? If you look at the judging and you pick 55 milliseconds, the scores get worse. And at 50, they get worse, even more poor, which means that as a panel, we're not very accurate getting close to 50. And that's why we need the training videos. That's why you need to spend the time looking at this, train your eye to pick it up, go to your own races, make your evaluations. I know a few of the judges in Europe are now setting their cell phones up, recording and then looking and doing the math that I do. And if anyone wants to have a talk after about how to do that for yourself, I'm happy to get on Zoom and talk you through it. But this is just saying we need to do better. We need to be able to consistently and accurately detect people who have 50 milliseconds loss of contact or more. Continue. Okay, I've already said this. Okay, so let's look at the bent knee. We all should know what a bent knee is, and yet that is an area that at times we tend to call too many bent knees, or we might be afraid to call them because I'm the judge on the turn. Okay, and this I think is very important because when I've talked to chief judges at races I've not judged, they don't penalize a judge for making a call different than the group if they can justify it. So if you're the judge on a turn and you make 5 more bent knee calls than every other judge, you say, well, they were just running around the turn, I had to give them a call. That's okay, right? So it doesn't mean that we always have to be consistent if we're in a different area of the course, just like somebody on a downhill might make more calls for loss of contact. Brian also did a study, I think it's the next slide, that basically says 178 degrees is visually straight. We've always said 180 is straight, which is drawing a line from the ankle to the knee to the hip. And studies say you can't see the difference between 178 and 180. And again, Pierce and I have had discussions, and why are you being so strict on bent knee and we're not as strict on loss of contact? And again, looking at all the videos, we said, let's use the number of 175 degrees as anything 175 to 180 is straightened and anything less than 175 is bent. So that's the numbers we used when we did the video. Continue. And obviously hyperextension is fine.
Sorry, Jeff. If you want to take a drink, again, don't be worried if you don't understand what a 178 degree leg is or 175. We will show you in the video and you'll understand it better after that. Please don't get intimidated by numbers which you might not be aware of or familiar of before. Thank you.
Continue. Okay, yeah, so this is just Brian's study, right? We don't have to read it. Continue.
Yeah, just to say to everybody, we will send out this presentation to everybody on the call as well. So just so you're aware of it afterwards. Here we go.
Okay, so 180 versus 177 with a green line, you can kind of see the little bend, but put muscles on that and put shorts and socks, very, very difficult, which is why we're using the threshold at 175. Okay, looking at someone with proper technique is very obvious. Looking at, say, a master's athlete who's not even close to race walking is very easy, very obvious. It's the people in between those two that become the challenge. So we came up with an exercise for this. Continue. Okay. And my thing is, if you look at it, there's a lot of reasons why a bent knee might not be called correctly. Starting with optical illusions, distractions could be the uniform or tape that they're wearing. Somebody with knobby knees could get, calls when they shouldn't. And let's face it, if you look, especially as you look from video to video to video, athletes' leg musculature is very different, and that could throw off a judge. Continue. So the first thing on the optical illusions, I didn't make this up. This is as old as the hills. But if you look at the two lines, which one is longer? And if you show this to people in third grade, they would all say line A. We've all hopefully seen this at some point. The lines are exactly the same size. Click, I think it'll draw a line across it. Oh, no. All right. Well, I had one with a line across it. They're exactly the same size. So distractions around the leg, around the knee could affect our judgment, and we have to train ourselves to avoid them. Okay. We're going to do one set of slides. Pierce, if you send this out, they'll have the link. There's 20 examples of this online, give or take. So go back for a second. All right. So what we're looking at right now is a sequence of the knee. And this came out of having a discussion with somebody who is very biomechanically inclined. And we were like, is this person legal or not? And they said, oh, I think they're legal. And I said, really, let's look at the knee. And we went through and said, which of these images is when the knee is straightened? And if you're off by a letter, you're close enough. It's if you're way off that it's a problem. So what the exercise says is look at this and make an initial evaluation and say, when do you think the leg is straightened? Okay, put that letter in your head. Now we're going to go frame by frame, Pierce. Okay, and we're going to click one at a time and say, is that straightened? I would hope everybody would say no. And just slowly click through, Pierce, one image at a time. And if you keep going. And what I feel like is, as a judge, if you start to see if the angle of the knee is changing and the knee has not reached hyperextension, the leg probably isn't straightened yet. Okay, keep going. Okay, but now
that's the end of it. We're going on to another athlete now. Yeah, this is it, is it?
So this is the same athlete, right? But now we can actually see when the foot contacts the ground. My view is that the leg is straightened at D, right? If you said C, E, close enough, we're not going to see that at full speed, but they don't make contact until F. So there's no question that this athlete has a straightened leg, right? And then if you click on the right, there should be if you move over to the right bottom square, there should be a little video that pops up. Or is it not in yours?
No,
all right. Well, on one online has
here we are.
There it is. Yeah, there you go. So now you can see it in motion, and that's a beautifully straightened knee, the way we would expect an elite walker to be walking. So this is a good exercise, if you go through the YouTube video, to train your eye and determine whether or not you're good at focusing on when the knee is straightened, right? If you get that, then you also combine and the heel must be in contact with the ground, and then you can judge bent knee. Okay. Now, bent knee calls can be less consistent because they could be navigating the turns, and that could cause a problem. Passing through an aid station or refreshment station is probably an area where athletes get sloppy. If they go to pass somebody, that's a good time to be watching extra close because They may take liberties. And as we saw in Italia, hiding in a large pack, very, very bad. Continue. So this is just a visualization of what we just said. I actually didn't shoot this video. World Athletics cameraman went to the turn for me and shot a whole bunch of video. And it was fairly appalling how many people were bent-kneed going around the turn. Continue.
Just to be clear to everybody, so we're all on the same wavelength. Someone does that in the turn, it's a direct red card. Direct red card. Because that's where the cameras are. That's what drags the sport into disrepute. Yeah, I've said enough.
And then you just have to tell the chief judge, hey, I was on the turn. I realize I'm different, and I would hope the chief judge would be fine. Is this a video? Yeah, I think it is. Go back. Oh, go
Is that
forward.
a video, Jeff? Is it? Is that a video?
No, the Uzbekistan guy.
Yeah, yeah.
The comment on the other one that you just went by is just position yourself so that you can see the entire turn. Don't be on one side. But this guy just made no effort to straighten his knee at all, and that was sort of how he was walking in other areas. And much like you, Pierce, when a race goes on, somebody sent this to me on YouTube or Facebook and said, how is this guy in the race?
Yeah, believe it or not, just for lots of the European colleagues, he was also in Podderbrady last year and he stayed in the race well past 10K, and that was a 1K lap. And for me, it's unforgivable. That guy should have been gone. Well, he should never be allowed to start. But, you know, if we ever see him start, we'll tell everyone beforehand, because he just doesn't walk.
And we didn't hide anyone here because this is not for public. It's just, you know, for our private viewing. Okay. And how did he survive an hour and 14 minutes? Because that's how long it was. He was hiding very well in the pack to where it took me laps on my video to even notice where he was. So he did a very good job of obscuring his vantage point. Continue. Okay, and this is him hiding in the pack. If you're a judge, you can't call him there, right? There's no visible look at his knee. Now, as a judge, we need to rotate around if we have a suspicion and try to make sure we can see. But it's difficult. Our job is very hard. Continue. Okay, and they may look good for a while, but they get tired, they get injured, right? This is mostly a repeat of what we said before. You can continue. Okay, this really surprised me. I have previously spoken that traditionally athletes don't change their technique when they're in between judges. I had a judge directly to my right while I was filming. And this athlete went from pretty much legal to horrifically illegal to mostly legal again to horribly illegal, all within like 20 meters. There was more of that in Italia, again, probably in the junior race more than anything. Past trends don't always indicate, so you've just got to be watching. I do think most athletes try. Maybe he was injured, I don't know, or just trying to keep up with them and should not have been.
Yeah.
I don't try to put my...
Sorry, I was just going to say two things. So World Athletics wrote to the Federation in Turkey, and I sent all the photographs to the head coach as well. So we gave them a very stern warning that this is unacceptable. As Jeff said, he's right. You know, we will stand in front of somebody who's not from the sport and say, oh yeah, we have a 2K lap. We have 8 judges, and somebody goes, 8 judges, yeah, what, like 200 plus meters apart, but sure, you can just run in between the judges. And we say, no, nobody does that. It's impossible to do that. You can't run between the judges. You know, you change your technique, etc., etc. And this guy, and he wasn't the only Turkish athlete who actually behaved like this as well in Antalya. So I would like to think we put it down to the fact that it was a home team championships and they filled their entry spots with substandard athletes. But again, we shouldn't be afraid, because we'll all get photographs of this on our phones that evening. Straight away, people will see it, because that's the world we live in now as well. But again, just to be aware of that. Thanks, Jeff.
Keep going. Okay, so, you know, I've had discussions with gold level judges long before I got involved in international judging, because I was always there with a camera. And I've had some judges say, well, you can't land flat-footed and keep your legs straightened. And for whatever reason, I can't tell you why, but there are a significant, not a majority, but a significant number of walkers landing flat-footed. I don't know if the new shoes are part of it. It doesn't necessarily affect legality, but it's just something to note that if you see something odd or different, it doesn't mean that they're landing bent knee. Maybe like the one on the bottom blows my mind that he's landing on basically the bunion, the outer part of the front of his foot. And if I'm filming, I can't also always evaluate what's going on live because I'm focusing on getting the shot. But this really surprised me. I saw this was Antalya. I saw a bunch of it in Paris as well. So it is a trend for what that's worth.
For my money, Jeff, it's a trend because coaches are not coaching technique. It's as simple as that. Any coach worth his or her salt will coach the athletes to land on their heel, to pull the toes back in towards the shin bone, to walk in what I would say is a traditional race walking legal technique, which we all learned when we were younger. The athletes like this are just coaches who just focus on speed and don't focus on technique.
Okay, continue. All right.
We've done the exam, so
you can go past that.
So
okay,
yes, Jeff. So I'm going to hand it over to you now. I'll stop sharing my screen. Everybody can take a breath if you can. So just before Jeff goes any further, yes, just to take a little breather while Jeff is getting himself set up.
I'm ready.
So, yes, just let me give it a little intro here on this, Jeff. So Jeff has explained that he's done a huge amount of video work in Budapest, in Paris, in Antalya, and years gone by. So before now, the videos for an exam, which World Athletics would have had before my time, would have been quite limited. But now we have so much more material, and we have Jeff actually doing the study on, white vest, yellow vest, green vest, what's happening, and to actually reassure the judges so you understand what's happening. So I don't want to steal Jeff's thunder, but what I want to say to you all are, and I've heard feedback today that the videos have really disturbed some judges because they just don't know what they're looking at. So Jeff is going to explain what you're seeing. He's going to use technology far better than YouTube, far better than slowing it down with your finger, with your mouse, and speeding it up. But what he's going to do ultimately, we've all seen walkers with these different types of technique. There's no two walkers have the same technique. What Jeff is going to say is, yeah, that guy in the white, we all know that technique. This is his loss of contact, whatever it is. And I don't want to take Jeff's. The walker in green, we all know that technique. I would say slapping the foot down and coming in high at the back. This is his loss of contact. And the guy in the yellow. And more, you will be able to understand what a walker's progression of steps is like. Therefore, that because I have trained on the videos, that equals X loss of contact. So I'm going to give a yellow paddle or a red card. So that's what this is for. We hope many of you have watched the YouTube today, have done the little test yourself. If not, you can watch now. Anyway, what we're going to try and do, well, actually, Jeff, if you're doing this and I'm doing polls, it's going to be a bit hard, but let's try and get the best way to do it anyway. We're going to do it on YouTube. You can talk through it and then I'll take control and do polls. So
I think I don't think you have to. That I have to give up control in order for
correct. I had the polls, which is great. Okay.
So everybody you're seeing my screen with walkers?
Yeah. If you can enlarge it at all, Jeff, that'd be great. If not, that's fine.
There's no easy way.
That's fine.
Hang on. Let me do one thing. You don't really need to look at me, so give me 1 sec. I will.
So just to be clear, what we're going through is the YouTube link that you all have, okay? That's all. So you should all have seen this, say, we hope. You had a little pen and paper and you looked and you made decisions and you wrote down, and now you can test your own knowledge. We will do some polls on the Zoom. They're anonymous. Nobody knows what you're saying. It's only for you to find out where you are relative to the other judges. That's all. So please don't be afraid. They're completely anonymous. It's just to help you to feel part of the team. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay.
That's better. That's better. Yeah, it's much better.
That's better. Okay. I switched. You're just going to see the side of my head on the video. All right. So here's what we're going to do. There are 18 questions. For each question, we're going to ask the poll first. Right. So Pierce, put the poll up, and then we're going to ask people when they did this at home, what was their answer for A, B, and C. And we're just asking red card for bent knee, red card for loss of contact, or no action for A, B, and C on each poll.
So yes, I hope everyone can see that. Like I said to you today, you should have prepared for, if you have, obviously feel free to vote. We're only going to give 30 seconds. We don't spend too much time. So we hope you have done your work. Write down your answers, and then we'll give you what actually you should have had afterwards. So we're going to go with another 15 seconds, please.
Okay, Pearson, then the way we'll do this is I will tell everybody what the loss of contact was. We'll walk through the video in very slow motion. And while I'm walking through the video, you can comment on what you see.
Yeah, people are still voting. I wonder, Jeff, would it be better to show them in real motion just to remind them who it is as well? Because maybe not everyone has done it.
I can show it in very slow motion. I'll move through because if I
well, maybe it's not better to do slow motion.
Because on Zoom, it's going to be
yeah. Okay. Well, listen, we asked everyone to do the work today, so I've 90% answered. Okay, so I will end the poll, Jeff. You give the answers and I'll share it. Or what way do you want to do it?
Okay. So let me give the answers. So the Walker A was 48 milliseconds, so they are legal. Walker B was 56 milliseconds, so certainly a yellow, if not a red. And Walker C was 65 milliseconds, so deserving of a red. And where I do the evaluation is when they come into the perpendicular. And so I'm just going to move a frame at a time while you talk.
Jeff, Jeff, let's start off. Walker A, because I can't see it. Let me just see. Okay, is this Slovakian guy. So what was the answer here? 68% no action.
48 milliseconds.
Yeah, so for 68%, you got that right. No action. That was the right answer. That was the right response to Walker A. Walker B?
Walker B was 56 milliseconds.
Yeah, so in real terms, we were saying that's a borderline case. So no action was 57, 10% yellow. I would say that was actually well judged by the group there. And Walker C?
Was 65 milliseconds.
Yeah, that's the real important one there. Only 57% of you said that was a red card. So I will stop sharing the poll and I will let everybody.
And also notice, in addition to being having a significant loss of contact, they're also landing flat-footed.
Yeah. Just sorry, Jeff, on that one there, you can just see them in the daylight in the red shoe at the back.
Sure.
And we all know that type of technique.
And we can zoom in more, and you can see there's still daylight under the front and a significant daylight in the back.
Yeah. The lead walkers low to ground, so would be no action. And myself and Jeff had a bit of a debate over, it was bent knee, I think, for number 2, but in reality, at worst, it was a yellow paddle. It was about 56 milliseconds off the ground. Walker C is the one that should have focused your attention. That's the red card athlete in that video. So we're just getting warmed up.
And I should point out, in doing this, more than one athlete could be deserving of a red card. All right, let's go to question 2. Okay, so in this one, we only have 2 athletes. We have Walker A and Walker B. All right, so we want to do the poll.
Okay, 1 second here. Back.
And I'm just going to start stepping through in slow motion.
Yeah, so it's only athlete A and athlete B we're voting for here, okay? So if you want to vote, Jeff, you're doing it in slow motion, which is probably defeating the purpose a little bit.
That's fine. I'll wait.
Yeah. Obviously, most of you can have your phone beside you and watch YouTube if you want to remind yourself, if you're on your laptop or vice versa. Okay, there's about 25 have answered. Okay, 26. We'll give it 10 more seconds, okay? Yeah, there's still answers coming through. There's about 30 answering, so that's fine. So I'm going to end the poll in 5 seconds. If you want to get in your vote, get in your vote. And okay, it seems to have stopped. Good. Okay, end poll. So Jeff, you want to give the answers?
Okay, so Walker A was only 8 milliseconds off the ground, but they exhibited a bent knee. So red card for bent knee. Walker B was 68 milliseconds off the ground. So red card for loss of contact. And how did they do?
Yeah, well, so Walker A, like they were both harsh red cards, 48%, and Walker B was 55%. So our review of that is Walker B is obviously loss of contact. A was just the bent knee, as you can see, and it's, I don't know what the percentage of the bent knee was, Jeff. It was, I would say it's not an outstanding bent knee because it's very straight under the body. But Walker A is going much too quick and there's way too much daylight there, and that is red card technique.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's not a horrible bent knee, but it's a late straighten. Let's go to 3. Okay,
Cool.
so there's only one walker in this one.
Yeah, so this is just athlete A on this one, okay?
Okay.
So 30 have answered. We'll give it another 10 seconds. Five seconds more. Okay, votes have stopped, Jeff.
Okay, so what was the percentage?
50% gave a red card.
Okay, so I had 56.7 milliseconds with, you know, a reasonably high back kick, right? He hasn't quite hit the ground, or he's just hitting the ground there, the foot's up. So certainly a yellow, probably a red.
Yeah. So Jeff, maybe just to say, and this is for the group, clearly this is anonymous, 40% of you said no action there at all. It's worth looking again at your judge and say, right, maybe I'm too soft, maybe I'm missing something, maybe I'm not seeing anything. We will send the answers with this. I will send you Walker A afterwards on the Excel sheet. We'll actually share the answers with you. I would prefer if this didn't go into the public domain. I don't want people pointing fingers at athletes or targeting athletes. This is you are the elite judging panel for World Athletics. We will share the information with you. We expect you to keep it confidential and to use it for training only. Thank you, Jeff.
No worries. All right, so question 4, we have A, B, and C is hiding behind. And, you know, oh, sorry, we got rid of C. So we have A and B. And, you know, if you can't see a walker, right, you shouldn't be making a call. In the real world, you should be changing your position so you can get an accurate view of that walker. So we want to do A and B on question 4.
So 70 votes. We'll give it another 15 seconds. Okay, 30. We give it 5 more seconds, guys. Right. End poll. Right, Jeff. I know the answers to these. Give your answers and we'll make an observation of it. So Walker A.
Both of these walkers were roughly 40 milliseconds apiece. To me, this is textbook in terms of legality, what we're looking for. And, you know, I'm pretty sure Walker B picked up a bunch of red cards for loss of contact, and it just wasn't there. You have to be able to discern the difference between seeing daylight and just seeing a high rear foot.
So, Jeff, really interesting one. So the Japanese girl, 80%, 81% said no action, spot on. I'm very familiar with Vivian Lyer, the Brazilian girl at the back. 60% they said no action, 20, so a quarter said a red card. That's something maybe to look at, because sometimes you can prejudge and say, well, I know her from behind, and maybe you know, I know she doesn't get red cards. I think as a group, the panel and maybe all of us are better at no action. I think that's where we get down to the training and the issue to say, fine. Jeff, what's her loss of contact? Just for the quarter of people who said
40.9.
the green vest is 40.9.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So a quarter of the people are seeing 40.9 and loss of contact. Clearly, you're seeing something else. This is where the training will hopefully help you and will change your mind and make your eyes sharper as well. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean that's laboratory conditions, and this video is not the equivalent of seeing it with a human eye, right? So if anything, it's harder to see on the video than it is with a human eye. All right, we're going to move on to question 5.
C5, Jeff. This is training. This is not an exam.
C5. I'm a professor. What can I say?
Yes. No, and I want people. I want people to understand this is not exam questions. This is training. This is where we can have an opinion. Clearly, guys, if you look at yourselves in school or in college, you start off the year with very little knowledge. You end the year with your exams with a lot more knowledge. This is the same of where we want to get to at race walk and judging training, that you improve your skills and you improve your eyes over time, the more experience you get with judging. So we got 3 athletes here. We'll just launch this again. A, B, or C. We'll give it 30 seconds. And maybe if it helps people, this is towards the back of the field as opposed to the leaders.
It's also a junior race.
We'll give it 20 more seconds. Okay, there's 33 in. We'll give it 5 more seconds. So I know a lot of you are probably writing this down at home without putting in the poll. That's absolutely fine. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, like I say, it's anonymous. Nobody sees who votes what way. It's just for you to feel part of an interactive webinar. Right,
it's also
35
good
votes.
for us to have that feedback, right? If we see patterns and consistency.
Yeah. Okay, I'll end the poll, Jeff. Shoot, give your answers.
Okay, so this one was interesting. So Walker A, I hope nobody took an action because it was 12 milliseconds.
Yeah, and here's the thing. So 10% of people, well, 3 people gave a red card for Walker A.
Okay, and Walker B is the interesting case. So I would have said the worst offense was the bent knee.
You want to just show it, Jeff, so people can see?
Yeah, I'm moving up to it. And there were, he was off, let me get to the, he was off 53 milliseconds. So if you gave him a loss of contact, not the worst. And, this isn't like the Uzbekistan guy bad, but it's not a fully extended knee at contact. And, I remember watching, because I'm scouting who I should take a video of, and this was visible to the human eye to me.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Walker C was 49 milliseconds, so they should have been no action. So
yeah, 71 no action, exactly. And yellow paddle, you should say the 15% who gave a yellow paddle is actually very good. What I would say for that Walker B, we all know that type of walker. He gets disqualified more days than he doesn't. Some days he gets away with it. Some days he gets disqualified. That's unfortunate, but that's the way it is on that one. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, question 6. 3 walkers, A, B, and C.
Just for people to know, and I don't want you to be distracting, the reason we're not showing this on YouTube, because on Zoom, the YouTube doesn't come out well. It's pointless. What Jeff is showing you all is a really high definition. I don't know how many frames per minute, but a lot more than most of our computers can handle, but at least it shows us what we need to see.
Yeah, when I'm stepping through, I'm showing twice as many frames as you see on YouTube. And I don't know what the resolution of Zoom is. On my end, it's 4 times the resolution of what we put out on YouTube.
I think it's safe to say, Jeff, your resolution is better than everybody else's on the call.
I'm very spoiled. It comes being a technology professor.
Okay, a few less people voting here, about 27, but that's fine. This is, we'll just go up to 30 there. Let me just go on 5 more seconds. Let everybody contribute. Okay, we'll end the poll now. Okay. Oh, still going. 60 seconds. Done. Okay. Right, Jeff, tell us.
Okay. So again, I believe these are 3 junior walkers, and junior walkers are going to exhibit worse technique. So if they have close to 50 milliseconds and have bad technique, it should be very visible. Look at Walker A, how high they're carrying their swing leg, right? So Walker A is at 56 milliseconds with a very high swing leg. That should be a call. Walker B is at 43, so they're fine. Walker C is at 51, and you might say, well, that's borderline. Should I make a call? But let's take a look as they come through, right? And you can see their rear foot, there's a lot of daylight there, right? So even though they're just over the threshold of 50, they should be somebody getting a call because their trail leg is coming so high off the ground.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Jeff, 70% of the judges on the call tonight said either red card or yellow paddle for Walker C, and nearly 70 again said it for Walker B.
Excellent.
So we're getting there.
All right, so question 7, 2 walkers.
The good thing we know is that roughly 30 of you of the 55 prepared for tonight, and the ones who prepared will get the most out of tonight as well. Sorry for the others. Okay, we've 30 people in, 40 seconds. Give it 5 more seconds. Right, Jeff, I'll end the poll. You tell them what they're looking at.
Both no action. They were both right along the ideal, 42 milliseconds and 44 milliseconds.
So it's a really interesting one for me. So athlete B, the French guy, me and Jeff had a big debate with this yesterday. Jeff said no action. For me, it's a red card every day. And I just look at the 58% have said red card and another 14. I really find that hard to see no action, Jeff. I really do. Look at the daylight there.
I understand. What you're seeing is the high rear foot carriage, not necessarily loss of contact.
So go to the loss of contact. Just go to the double phase.
So he's high, but this is B.
I honestly would ask you to recheck the figures, because for me, and I watched it on YouTube, and you can all watch it again. For me, that's a red card every single day. That's a guy going way quicker than his technique will allow him to go, in my view.
Yeah, and if somebody is, look, the test says that you can see 45 milliseconds loss of contact. So if he's an outlier and has a really high rear foot, then you probably can see it. Right, but you asked me to do this by the numbers, not by opinion.
Yeah, I know, and I do trust your numbers, Chef. But for that one, we had a big debate yesterday. I just couldn't see that has been.
And if out of 50 athletes we disagree on one, I'll take that. Right, it means we're thinking and challenging each other. If we are 100% consistent, that's probably something's wrong there. So I don't think anyone should be. Feel that if they said that this Walker B was loss of contact, I think that's fine. I wouldn't argue it. Okay, A, B, and C on question 8.
Yeah, of course, for everybody watching tonight, when we're talking, you can obviously have YouTube open as well and look at it to give yourself a reminder. I think this is still the junior race from Antalya.
I don't think so.
They're very young seniors if it is.
Oh, no, maybe it is. So maybe I have the wrong name on C. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sharing the names, but I have the names written down here.
Okay, we're about 30 in. So, Jeff, I will end the poll in 5 seconds if you want to make a vote.
So A was 42, so no action. B was 42, so no action. C was 57.6, so I would say red card for loss of contact.
Yeah, well, now we're getting better. So here's the great thing. No action, red card. 88% said no action for A. 58% no action for B, and red card was 73, and 9 is a yellow paddle, which is 81% of you. So that, if you can see this now as a group, you're all getting better.
And look at the difference between B and C, right? So B is off the ground. We're not saying they're not, but there's not a huge amount, even if we move forward, right? As compared to C. All right, let's move on to question 9.
Sorry, Jeff, I was just texting somebody.
A and B is who we're judging.
So the good thing I can see in this is people are now voting quicker. I think you're getting comfortable. So this will help you with the exam, guys. We will leave this video on YouTube. This will absolutely help you because I can see more people are voting and you're making decisions quicker. So it just shows you, like everybody else, practice will obviously not make perfect as such, but give you more. So this has been the biggest vote we've had so far, and we've now 50 seconds. So I'll end the poll in 5 seconds if anyone else wants to vote. Right, Jeff, all yours.
Okay, so A was 47 milliseconds, no action.
56% said that, which is good.
B was 29 milliseconds, but bent knee. So let's go in the perpendicular.
Yeah. So 66% had a red card for B. Yeah, just get him on the knee, Jeff, just to show everybody. Yeah, I mean, but maybe before that, before. Get him when he's landing on the ground, because as the rule says. Yeah.
So he's someone who's bending as he's coming through. You know, it's not egregious, but it is there.
Jeff, to help people, what degrees would you say that is?
Hang on.
There, just stop it there. Exactly. What would you say that is?
173.5.
Yeah, and herein, if I could say to everybody, this is why myself and Jeff had words yesterday, because if we're saying 175 degrees for the knee is straightened, and this is 173, we all would know that as a bent knee, but it's a very, very, very narrow bent knee, and compared to what we let away sometimes on contact, that's the issue. So that was why we had the discussion yesterday. I think it's good, Jeff, to leave that there. Obviously, this is on a Zoom. People can understand that. That's a bent knee. A lot of people say, I can't see bent knee. I don't understand what bent knee is. We always respond, the whole world knows what a bent knee is. This is a very marginal call of a bent knee.
It's very marginal. So bent knee is often easier to see in motion than it is, you know, in a still, because you see the angle changing and the leg pushing back. But, you know, he's very marginal. Absolutely.
So I would say, I would call that a soft knee.
Correct. Okay. So let's look at A and B on 10.
Okay, let me just launch this poll. We'll give it 20 more seconds. Five seconds. And end. Right, Jeff, you take it away. I'll share results.
Okay, so A is a very interesting case. 66 milliseconds. B is 43. So I would give a red card to A, no action for B. And the reason that I say A is interesting is they really didn't get red cards in this race. And there was another race that I watched them, same technique, same numbers, didn't get calls, but that front foot's not on the ground, and there's a huge amount of daylight behind. and compare that to Walker B.
Jeff, just hold on that one there, because that Ethiopian. So here's a couple of theories I have. Only 40% of the judges here tonight said a red card. This guy was top 8 in the Olympics. And there is a debate, and I don't think we as a race walking community have discussed anymore about the magic shoes, the super shoes. What are they doing to technique? As a coach, I don't think it would take much effort to have that guy legal, because he is, as you say, quite low. He's just delaying his contact with the ground because he's not strong enough actually on his heel. And obviously, as an Ethiopian, I would imagine there's not huge expertise in race walking, but that's probably part of that decision. Clearly, Walker B, no action. Well, it was 66%. I'm not sure what the other 30% saw.
All right,
Thanks,
Pearson,
Jeff.
I will coach you to say that we want to keep the people anonymous.
Yeah.
All right, so A, B, and C.
You have 15 more seconds. And okay, end poll. Right, Jeff, shoot, because we're getting near the 2 hours.
Okay, 11. Just give people less time on polls.
Yeah.
All right. So this one, the margin of error between the three was almost nominal. 51 on A, 49.9 on B, 52 on C. And so if you said, hey, someone at 51, you're going to give a yellow to, okay, but the reality is all these guys are walking right on the edge of where they should be walking. Come on, move forward.
Yeah, Jeff, so all three were no action. 55%
Correct.
was A, 58 B, and 73 C. So I would say, if we're going to be really honest and talk among ourselves as judges, probably none of the three of those guys deserve to be disqualified when you've got a field of 40 or 50 athletes. They're not going to be the worst ones. Put it like that.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. Good. Shoot.
Move on to 12. So we just have A in 12.
And we're going to give 30 seconds only because I'm conscious of people's time.
Yeah, let's.
Oh, just A, okay. I give 15 more seconds just because there's only one athlete. It should be quicker. Five seconds. And we close the poll. Right, Jeff?
Okay, so A, what is this, question 12? Was 60.9 milliseconds, so should be a red card for loss of contact.
Yeah, 60% of the judges that, plus another 22 for yellow.
Okay, so not as bad as some of the others, but certainly in the threshold that it should be visible. 13. Okay, so now we're on a turn, and so I'll have to step through when we get going, but there's A, B, and C in this one.
Yeah, the poll's open. Ten more seconds, everybody. Right, Jeff, I'll close the poll. 35 about it.
A is no action. B should be bent knee, and I would hope we're at 90% on that. And C
yes,
would
94, which is good. 97, yeah. And
yeah,
C
so
is no action,
great.
yeah. So that's it. Clearly, that's an easier place to judge. All the results there are a lot better. Right, Jeff, shoot.
All right. I'm not going to show it because they can look at it at home. Question 14. Okay, A and B.
Yeah, 1 second. Sorry here. I'm trying to put up the new poll. Sorry, Jeff, here. Hang on. Let people watch it while I sort myself out here. Oh, there's still a poll being shared. Apologies. Sorry, Jeff, just go through it because the polls aren't letting me back up
Okay,
again for some reason.
so both A and B are less than 40 milliseconds. B is no action. A to me was slightly bent, like it was 168 degrees when we measured at the perpendicular. Not, you know, horribly bent, but just enough that you can see it as you go through. And then she straightens. So she gets straight and vertical, but she's bent in the process.
Yeah, cool. Next one, Jeff.
Yep, one sec. Okay. All right, we have A, B, and C. Are we not doing a poll?
I'm trying to get my polls back up and running.
Okay, so that's fine. We can just rip through it, save time. A, B, and C were all legal. So no bent knee whatsoever, and no issue with loss of contact.
Yeah, there's the polls there. Okay, go on to the next one then. We'll leave the poll up for the next one.
Okay, so poll open on 16. We have A, B, and C.
So this is question 16, and that's what's on the screen. Right, Jeff, you give your answers then because I'm getting texts from people that have to go on the hour.
Okay, A is no action, B and C are bent knee.
Yeah, a lot better. C is a bent knee, and we get 33% red card. Bring us through that one, Jeff.
C was hidden behind, so it was very hard to see. But if you look early,
go on, keep going.
yeah, I can only move so fast because of Zoom. So
yeah, okay, there. Okay, yeah.
Okay. 17. A, B, and C.
We'll give 30 seconds for this one. Okay, 5 seconds more. All yours, Jeff.
Okay, A is no action. B is A was actually loss of contact. They were off 58 milliseconds.
Really? So 70% said no action on A.
Yeah, and that was hard because they were obstructed, and I think we've now trained everybody to look for bent knee. But the point of throwing that one in was to make sure that people focus, you know, on bent knee, not just on bent knee, but on both. B was bent knee, and C
90%.
was no action.
Yeah, 76%. Good.
All right, last one, A and B.
Last one for me as well. Good. These are both fairly clear-cut, Jeff. Do you want to talk then? Because
A and B are both legal. No action.
Both no action. So 90 and 93%, which is good.
Good. One other thing I wanted to share, and we can put this all in an email. Let me just share my main screen again. That I'll put this in a link, which is my website. There is a race walking exam, we'll call it practice. You can watch it at full speed, half speed, quarter speed, and then look at the answers. These were from a while ago. They're not obfuscated, so I apologize for that. At the time, we had to do it quickly. But if you want more practice, you can go there. I just popped that in chat. And that's all I got.
Good. Jeff, you have put that link just there now in the chat for everybody, yeah?
Correct.
Good. guys, most of you stayed with us, over 50, which is great. Tonight was a small group of people. I'm going to send the invitation for everybody to come to the bronze training. I think it's the same time next week. So you're all welcome to come. You're welcome to share with people who just might want to learn about basic race walk training. You guys, it's a very higher level expected from the gold level judges. That's why tonight wasn't about judge behavior, showing paddles, filling paperwork. It's a far higher level is expected from you. I really wish you all the best of luck in the exam on Saturday week. As far as I know, Victoria left her email in the chat, so contact her if you're having problems downloading the app. Other than that, on behalf of Sebastian Coe, President of World Athletics, I want to thank you all for the work that you do in promoting our sport and in defending the integrity of race walking. It's without judges, we can't have the event. So we're very grateful for all the time you spent. Good luck with your practicing. As you can see, the main part is on the video. So what you saw tonight on YouTube will be there for public information. The answers will not be, I will email the answers out on an Excel sheet for you guys to be able to come to practice and prepare. Thank you all for your time. For those in Europe, have a good night. For those in North America, have a good evening. And for our colleagues in Asia and in Australia, we hope you get some sleep at some point. So thank you all very, very much. I hope it was beneficial to you. Have a good rest.